This study was just published in June. This is looking at, it's a meta-analysis of individual studies looking at psychosexual functioning in individuals with autism and ADHD. They do separate autism and ADHD. Lots of sex-based differences. So I want to share some of the findings here so that you can know about it too. That means these videos are going to be long, they're not scripted, and hopefully you will get value. Overall, all of the findings show that psychosexual functioning is poorer in those of us with ASD and ADHD, and we have higher risk, especially if we're female-bodied. So starting with people who have autism and looking at satisfaction. So they looked at 9 studies looking at satisfaction. There were mixed findings among the studies. Some studies found no difference in activity and satisfaction to neurotypical peers to holistic minds. But one study found that adolescent boys had fewer experiences than their neurotypical peers, in contrast to findings 2 years prior. Other factors like culture, relationship skills, and et cetera were not accounted for across studies. ASD males were less likely to watch adult media or to self-pleasure than neurotypical. No difference found in females. One study found ASD females viewed sexuality as less important than neurotypicals and saw themselves as less attractive than neurotypical peers. Next up will be dysfunction. Looking at victimization and predation. People with autism and ADHD both report feeling different as far as our orientation, behaviors, and experiences when compared to neurotypicals. Both ASD and ADHD report dissatisfaction, dysfunction, risky behaviors, and victimization. Females consistently show poorer functioning and greater risk, especially with increased negative experiences and victimization. So now quoting the paper, there may be an effect of sexual orientation that was investigated by Pecora et al., who found differences between ASD and neurotypical females by sexual orientation. ASD homosexual females were almost 3 times more likely to report an unwanted experience than their neurotypical heterosexual female peers. Comparisons for ASD females found the likelihood of having negative experiences similar to those who are bisexual. Folks with ASD were less likely to have engaged in behavior they regretted. When looking at perpetration, which would be the counter to victimization, in parent reporting studies, these studies consistently find that parents perceive their autistic children display more inappropriate behaviors, touching, self-pleasuring in public. That mirrors experiences I've had with clients. So next we'll move into ADHD. So moving on to dysfunction, and we're still in autism land. This review found that autistic females had lower excitation and more problems across all domains with our functioning, desire, arousal, climax, compared to neurotypical females. Autistic males report greater problems than holistic males. So autism is associated with more dysfunction in intimate relations. If we look at the onset of activity for autistic individuals, most studies found no difference in self-reported age of onset. One study found that females who are autistic had a lower age at first penetration than neurotypical females. No studies that met their review criteria looked at contraception. Next will be predation and victimization. To sum it all up, strikingly, compared to neurotypical females, over half of females with autism were twice more likely to report negative experiences characterized by coercion and unwanted contact. Researchers also identified what they're calling a double deficit due to the overlap in autism and ADHD. And they're suggesting that clinicians consider general neurodevelopmental symptoms as a potential indicator of risk for poor psychosexual outcomes and should more routinely inquire about sexual selfhood and practices and identify risky behaviors that may lead to negative outcomes. What is risk? What is a negative outcome? If your kid is in front of a person who is not sex positive, they might see risk where a person who is sex positive won't. And sex positivity is just about accepting the variability of the human condition and accepting that we're all going to have our own ways of expressing and experiencing love and connection. And so if you're in a neurodivergent body mind and somebody's paying attention to you psychosexually, let's look for people who are not going to pathologize us.